All right, so this is July 24th. I guess you could say it's a summary, but for me, it's a completely different concept or a different communication. It kind of is a wrap up and a summary, but here we go. I'm going to title this, Are You a Seeker? I know this is communicated in the various books that I enjoy. I'll bring those up in a second. But this is not to say if you're a seeker that's good or bad, upside down, sideways. We're all just on our path in life, doing whatever we're doing in life. And to summarize, I started these videos with something that I really, really enjoyed with Vedanta Hinduism. Again, you've heard this a million times, but the mantra or the saying that there are many paths to consciousness, to God. And in my mind, I just think that's extraordinary. The great Ramakrishna, for a year, practiced or more the Muslim faith. He practiced Christianity, Hinduism, I'm sure Buddhism too, and he loved Vedanta, Bhakti Hinduism. And I believe, and I know for myself, I just see that all these paths can work, and I enjoy many of them. I haven't studied them all, but I just think that's extraordinary. And it takes away the idea that there's dogma is correct or that there is only one way. Kind of takes the way proselytizing and saying everybody's got to do this. And this video is basically saying if you are a seeker inside, my thought would be just find what communicates to you. Because I've witnessed this enough to know that if it really, really communicates and then you practice it and it continues to communicate, you might be finding the path that will help you as a seeker. And it's totally okay to change. Maybe you're doing one path and it shifts over. As the great Vivekananda said, eventually we have a billion different paths, different religions, as we all find out who we really are. So, and in the same light, we have many paths, same end, many paths, same God. We also have that there's many words to the same truth. And I find that extraordinary. In fact, the more I listen to people talking or read things or listen to a video, I just find it really interesting because we each have to, in our heart, find out what these various ideas really mean, because they're going to mean different things to each of us according to our dharma, our energy, our karma, and our paths. And that's why I'm saying maybe this is the last video. But anyway, finding out what communicates to you on all these great paths is really, really important, I think. And back to these books, I don't know how or why this happened. I just know, and I've told this story, but I'll brief it again, how I ended up at the Vedanta Center in Sacramento. How I grabbed my first book was the great Swami Vivekananda. But he was mainly, and I think this was the connection, that he was mainly, as a youth, as he started, more of a what's called Jnana Yoga, which is the path of knowledge. And so was I. But as time went by, and Vivekananda became a disciple of Ramakrishna. Here's his books on the lower right. Ramakrishna or Ramakrishna's disciples. And he was very much a proponent of bhakti, worship, love, in the same light as Lord Jesus. And it was his descriptions that led me to understand how valuable that was. And it took getting over a lot of ego and pride and arrogance really to see the truth in what he was saying. So, but these books, I went over and over and over. I don't really read them much anymore, but fantastic. And the value of the Bhagavad Gita. My goodness, in these books on the top left, I never read the Bhagavad Gita itself. I couldn't do it. In the same way that I couldn't read the Bible. It just didn't communicate, even though the truths in the Bible, at least the ones I've read on this book, The Sermon on the Mount, fabulous. but I go with the words of Vedanta. But that's my path. And I say that because I think these paths are so interesting. And I'm just going to bring up this one because a dear friend was telling me that this gentleman, I've mentioned him before. Let me just bring him up so you know him. He's the Swami out of Vedanta, New York. And I just love this guy. I just love him. And I can't pronounce his name. Sarva Priya Ananda, I think. Most of the Swamis, their names, if not all of them, end with Ananda, which I believe means bliss. But he's the one that I listened to almost in the first month or two. How that happened, I don't even know. I was just Googling some things. He came up, and he's the one that talked about, I've mentioned this one before, the white rock, black rock, that when you start meditating, you might have a lot of negative images and impressions in the mind, and he labeled those black rocks, and that you have a big jar of black rocks, and as they come up, just let them go and replace the jar with, or those black rocks with white rocks, which are good thoughts, good feelings. And if you continue to do that, eventually you have a jar of white rocks. I just thought that was I did that in the beginning. Haven't done it in a long time, but I sure did. And I thought it was really, really powerful. But he's got this amazingly kind demeanor. And my friend is going through his whole discussion of the Gita, Bhagavad Gita. And that communication is she just loves it. Just absolutely loves it. So here's another finding, maybe that's partly in our day and age, finding your guru, as they used to say in the old days. Go find a guru. So maybe through the internet and listening to somebody passing on. I personally believe there's a truth here and a truth out there. And when you find that person that you can communicate with, and eventually I think it all becomes one and you just go on your own path, which is also discussed in Vedanta Hinduism. So I just wanted to pass these on, the books, the Swami, and whether it's Christianity, whatever religion and path you find, have at it. Be a seeker. Well, if you're a seeker, have at it. I think about it all the time, and I have for 50 on years now. So, and I think, and here's another little interesting point on that. I'll take this off, but I wanted you to see his name and who he is, because he's just got a ton of videos. Find the ones that communicate and go for it. When I mentioned this in some of my earlier videos, and again, I don't like talking about myself or my realizations. That's just my stuff. And I always give out the quotes of who I consider to be the great swamis and the great gurus. So here's some of them. I know when I meditate, I really do like to start off with bhakti, the path of worship and love and peace. And I like meditating on some of the great gods, and it's their character. It's what they taught me over these years. And I thank them. I do that. And you know what? If somebody doesn't like that path, fine. It makes me feel good. I'm happy. Yeah. Then I go right over to Buddha's Four Immeasurables, which I think are so powerful, so good. The idea of serving others, meditating, cultivating the idea of wanting others to be happy, that's actually one of his definitions of love. Feeling joy because of other people's joy, because what we're doing is giving up that little self and getting the bigger picture. Having compassion and understanding for people that are really challenged in life. Anyway, it goes on and on and on. Look up the Four Immeasurables. So there's the bhakti yoga of love and worship, and then there's the Buddhism, and then I go right back to the Hinduism, and I love meditating on what's called Satchit Ananda, existence, infinite existence, knowledge, and bliss. I love it. But maybe to my last point on this and the simplicity of this video is what's occurred to me more and more is just the strength and power of just this idea that everybody finds their path, and that maybe you need to read somebody or follow somebody and find that path as yours evolves. But I find it more and more interesting too that all of these things, even in these videos that I brought up, and all of these gurus and the Gita and the great swamis have said, that we all have to sort these out on our own. We all have to sit down in meditation and or life and find out. And I wrote down what some of these things are that I thought were kind of funny. I'm sure there's just tons of them. And one day, you're meditating along and you go, now I know what was meant by that. But it's what in your heart you've discovered. What does it mean to find a guru, which I was just mentioning? What does it mean what is the idea of all is one? And how does that sort out with that we're each finding our own individual path? To me, it's very clear, but a few years ago, it wasn't clear. And my truth on that might not be the same as somebody else's. How does caring and loving for others, but also the understanding, as the great Ramakrishna said, there are folks out there that are acting bad. There's evil. And he talks about this, the analogy of the snake, and that you have to hiss at times. How does that fit? Because I think a lot of people get trapped by that idea of love all, and you might bring a Charles Manson into your house. How does that work? And each of us have to sort that out according to our karma, our dharma, our duties in life. Are you a monk? Are you a householder? All of these things get to be sorted out, each of us individually. I think that's fabulous. And I don't think anybody can tell you what that truth is. Yeah, I did a couple videos on how to let go according to Hinduism, how to not be attached, as almost all religions say, cravings, whether you call it, like in Christianity, lust and greed, whether you call it lust and, lust and greed. I mean, almost all religions talk about that. Aversions, fears, all of these things. How do we detach from that? What does that actually mean? We actually have to figure that one out. We can read about it, but we have to go in and figure it out. I know that this Swami that I just showed you in New York, I haven't watched the video, but it actually talked about it. I have a couple videos where I mention quotes from Buddha and Hinduism. So, and how do you serve and help others? I find that to be a fascinating question. I have a good Christian friend who does free dentistry in Indonesia on people, and that's one of his ways to serve. Maybe you help others by taking care of nature. I have a cousin who's very involved with environmentalism. In a way, that's a form of worship according to Ramakrishna. He actually listed out different methods of worship if all of it is consciousness or God in that flow of bhakti yoga. Caring for the environment would be a worship. Helping others. I mean, it doesn't have to be just helping people. There's so many different ways. We all get to sort that out. And you'll know when it's right for you. You'll know. How to let go of little s self. What does that mean? And I always try to not kind of get into my own take. I'll sometimes told stories of things that happen, but I always just tried to provide the quotes and say, here are these paths, because I'm just traveling mine. I think some of these people have actually achieved something. And I think the great gurus and the great swamis that's just what I've tried to pass on. And so if you are a seeker, and if you've looked at these as a seeker, or if you're not a seeker, there are people that went to the great temple of Dakshineshwar in Calcutta when Ramakrishna was there and went and listened and said, not now, not my time. Great. There's no right or wrong in this. If you're a seeker, find your path. And I'm just presenting some of the ones that I've looked at that I think are quite extraordinary. And as I've mentioned before, the great Ramakrishna, and that book right there, Ramakrishna and His Disciples, was the first one on that path. Vivekananda, big bridge in Calcutta, he's very, very famous, and that bridge is the Vivekananda Bridge. And I like reading his take on the Bhagavad Gita and the great Shankara. I think it was Vivekananda that said he's the perfect description of Vedanta Hinduism. I don't know. I just love his book. And the Sermon on the Mount is the other favorite. I just love how that book presents a truth seen in both Christianity and Vedanta Hinduism. Totally different words, but it's the same truth. And you start seeing that all of these religions can lead to truth. So let's let dogma go away. Let's let proselytizing go away. And just let everybody find their path and their truth. Anyway, that's all I wanted to communicate. I think it's really, really fun. I know for, 52 years now, this has been what I've been doing. The main theme. And let me also emphasize, as a householder, the other main theme is the love in my family, and all that entails. Even my job was helping others and serving others. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll just leave it at that.